Welcome, and this is part 2 of Designing a Quality Lesson. And in this presentation, I'll review some characteristics of a quality lesson and elements of essential instruction. So, what are some characteristics of a quality lesson? Well, you should have a high percentage, aiming towards 100% of your students engaged. And what does it mean to be engaged? Well, the students should be participating. They shouldn't be standing around. They shouldn't be socializing with friends. They should be focused on the actual lesson. And when students are engaged, they're paying attention to you, the teacher. They listen, they follow directions, they ask questions related to the lesson. So in other words, they're considered active learners. And then we've mentioned this before, the lesson should be success oriented. And this means that you account for all levels of ability in your class and you create activities in which everyone can experience success at their level. And this takes time. It is doable, but it does take time, and it is effective. It helps improve students' self-esteem and self-perception as well, avoiding that learned helplessness. Remember that term? You should also have clear objectives and offer specific and frequent feedback. Students should know exactly what's expected of them each day. They should also be held accountable for those objectives. That's why it's important to make them clear and student-friendly. They're also for you, the teacher. If you as a teacher don't have a clue as to what you're doing, how can you expect the students to know? Students need to know exactly what they're doing wrong as well. They need to know how to improve that. That's why feedback is important. This is your responsibility as a physical educator. Inform students of any incorrect techniques or skills that they're performing and explain to them how to do it correctly. And then low management time. And this goes along with a high percentage of students being engaged. If the students are engaged, they can't misbehave, or at least they shouldn't. It's minimized. And this allows you to spend more time giving feedback and helping students rather than addressing any off-task behavior. And if at all possible, minimize or reduce the wait time. I know this is difficult, especially with minimal equipment and several students in the class, but it is possible. It does require you to think outside the box, to be creative and develop ways to include all students in an activity without having them wait their turn. Because many classroom management problems will begin with students waiting their turn. Also, your enthusiasm as a teacher goes a long way. If you're enthusiastic, your students will pick up on it. Now, I'm not suggesting that you become a cheerleader and perform and entertain for your students all the time. However, how you approach a lesson indicates to the students whether or not it's important. So when conducting a lesson, act like you enjoy it even if you don't. Now, when you've planned and prepared a lesson, a good lesson, there should be some additional elements of instruction to consider. We talked about objectives and outcomes, making sure that they're measurable, things that you can observe and assess that the students are aware of as well. Also, determine instructional entry levels, and this means pre-tests. Determine where the students are and meet them where they are. Don't create this general expectation that all students are going to need to fall into. Find out where each student's level of ability is and work with those students from there. Also, effective use of time. Try to use your time properly and wisely. Give students an excessive amount of time to practice skills. Give them opportunities to challenge themselves in those skills that they're learning so that they not only become proficient in those skills, but they are also kind of self-managing themselves when they learn those skills. So they understand how to manipulate their body, the different things that they need to do in order to meet a variety of challenges that they're meeting. Meaningful sequential instruction. And this is just progression. Always start off with the bare basic, assuming the student knows nothing, and move them down the line. And then actively monitor your students' performance. Sometimes this can just be a structured observation. Sometimes it may require assessment, a checklist, peer observations, peer assessments. But find ways to monitor your students' performance and give them feedback on how they're doing and how they're progressing and things that they need to do to improve. Also, use appropriate instructional cues. And this is basically developing either short phrases or words that help students along so they can remember and retain the different process and progressions of activities. And we'll discuss more about developing cues and what those cues are in class. Demonstrate the skills. Demonstrate them yourself as a teacher. Let the students be able to visualize what a proper skill is and how it should look. And so if you can't do it, Ask a student who's capable of doing it to demonstrate for them. Always use those students to your advantage, but give the students something visual so they can see, so it's not all just explanation. Check for understanding. This is something that should be ongoing, something that happens periodically throughout a particular lesson. Do not just wait until the end of a lesson to check for understanding, because you may have missed some students early on in the lesson. So as you introduce new ideas, new concepts, new skills, new themes, always check for understanding. Find out whether or not the students are following you, if you need to take a step back, if there's something that students don't know. But you always want to check for that understanding so that students are following you, so that they are learning and they are ready to progress and move to the next step. And then use your closure effectively. Tie the lesson into something tangible, something that they understand. Let them know that the things you're doing in a particular lesson will transfer over into other areas of life. It doesn't always have to be contained in the classroom. And that's something that needs to be conveyed to the students. They won't pick that up on their own, but it's important for them to understand how what they're doing in the classroom is going to be beneficial or useful to them outside of that classroom. And that's it for this presentation. We'll pick up more and discuss learning styles and teaching styles a little bit later. But until then, take care.